This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. Today's Sugya is a major Sugya in Shas, not just on Yevamos, but in Shas in general. Our Gemara in Yevamos speaks about something called Trei Sveika D'Oraisa, or Trei Sveika D'Rabbanan. Trei Sveika D'Oraisa means as follows. Somebody asked about this, I believe it was Monday night. Trei Sveika D'Oraisa means as follows. If you have two Eidim against two Eidim, and now we're in a standstill, now we're in a stalemate, but we have a Chazaka here that could direct us. Trei Sveika D'Oraisa means, despite the fact that there's a Chazaka here, nevertheless, on a biblical level, it's a Safek. We don't allow the Chazaka to paskin the Safek. That's what it means, Trei Sveika D'Oraisa. The Gemara's conclusion is no, Trei Sveika D'Rabbanan. That means on a D'Oraisa level, we will allow Chazaka to work. So for instance, if you throw a woman a get, it might be closer to you, it might be closer to her. So you would say it's 2 against 2. It's Safek whether she's married or not. No, D'Oraisa, we will allow her status quo of being an Eishes Ish to say on a biblical level, there's no Safek. On a biblical level, she's still married. You have two Eidim that say the get might have been closer to her. It doesn't matter. We will allow Chazaka to say that on a biblical level, she is still married. On the Rabbanon level, it's a Sveika D'Rabbanan. Midrabbanan, there is still a chash that maybe she is not married. But on a D'Oraisa level, we will allow Chazaka to work. Those are the two tzadim of the Gemara. The Havamina is Trei Sveika D'Oraisa, and the Gemara seems to conclude Trei Sveika D'Rabbanan. Now, let us try to understand what is the back and forth. Why in the Gemara's Havamina did the Gemara think Chazaka would not work? And in the Gemara's Maskana, the Gemara feels Chazaka would work. So there's a famous Tosfos in Cheskas Sabatim, and if it's not famous yet, maybe after the Shiur it will be famous. The Gemara is discussing a situation of 2 against 2. And the first two Eidim say the facts were one way, and the other two, the second Eidim, come and say the facts are another way. And basically, the Gemara says it's a stalemate. The Gemara brings the machlokes there, but for our purposes, Tosfos has a very interesting question. When two Eidim come and say the facts are different, why can't we believe the second Eidim, believe them that the facts are not so? Because if they wanted, they could have come and they could have said the first two Eidim are Gazlanim, they're robbers, they're cheaters, they're not reliable people. They could have, instead of challenged the facts of the case, they could have challenged the credibility of the Eidim. This is what we call a Migui, right? You know what a Migui is. Migui, believe me when I say A, because if I was lying, I could have said a better lie. Meaning, believe me that I'm telling the truth, because if I was lying, I could have lied much better. That's the concept of Migui. So Tosfos wants to know, why doesn't every second set of Eidim have a Migui? They could have made a better lie. Tosfos says the truth is, they could have, instead of challenged the credibility, they could have been Meizim the second Eidim. Meizim the second Eidim is, they could have said, how do you know the facts are, believe me that your facts are wrong, because we could have said about you that you were with us in Dubai with the rest of the Jewish world these days, you know? So, that Tosfos says, no, that's not a good Migui. That's not a good Migui because they would be afraid to be Meizim because lest they themselves become Huzam. Fine. So that's Tosfos' kasha. Tosfos answers, let me get the line. V'nirali de Migui b'makam Eidim lo yamrinan. You can't say a Migui b'makam Eidim. Why? The Migui lo yuchal l'sayim yosem mishnei Eidim. A Migui can assist the Eidim more than another two Eidim. Afilu hayimam kuf Eidim einam anim. The Trei kameya. Tosfos is saying, well, how could a Migui help Eidim? Even if you had another 98 Eidim with you, they wouldn't be more believed. So you have 2 against 2. So you want to know, why can't Reuven and Shimon, right? Reuven and Shimon testify the facts are this way. Levi and Yehuda come in and say, no, the facts are another way. You want to believe Levi and Yehuda because they could have made a better lie? We can't believe Levi and Yehuda more, because even if Levi and Yehuda had 98 Eidim testifying to their position, they wouldn't be believed more. So if 98 more Eidim don't buffer their position, then certainly a Migui wouldn't. In other words, Tosfos' point is 100 Eidim is not better than 2 Eidim, so why would 2 Eidim and a Migui be better than 2 Eidim? Meaning, in the face of Eidim, when you have Eidim against Eidim, you can't add anything to Eidim because Eidim is the ultimate proof. Then Tosfos says, you know what? Another idea. By 2 Eidim Migui is not possible. The ein dash shneim shaveh, because when you're dealing with two people, the way their thinking is different, and what this guy would taina, the other guy wouldn't taina. In other words, there's an idea that Migui would only work on Migui can only help one person. If one person says something, we should believe him because he could have said a better taina. But if you have two people, we're not going to say, I'll believe these two people because they could have said a better taina, because it's very unlikely two people would have had the same thought process and made up the same lie together. Okay, so that means, let's just understand, according to the first answer of Tosfos, Migui cannot add anything to 2 Eidim, and according to the second answer of Tosfos, Migui could add to 2 Eidim. It's just that Eidim don't have a Migui because the whole psychology of Migui is I could have said a better taina, but there's no way that the two of us could have together come up with the better taina. Okay, that means there are two answers in this Tosfos. Each answer sort of has a better way of looking at it. Let's see. What do you know? Okay. Now let's see the famous tshuva of Rabbi Eiger. This is Rabbi Eiger, tshuva kuf lamed vav, clue. And Rabbi Eiger is basically masber our Gemara. And here, Rabbi Eiger in Siman kuf lamed vav in Arachayim, he says, Ulam ba'emes hachaloi tzarch lezeh. D'yesh loimer, b'pshutai, d'chazal loi hechmiru rak d'ha'edim mesalkin lehachazaka commandolesa. You could say simply that Chazal were not machmir by Eidim, that Eidim would make the Chazaka as if it's not here. Ukamay desfir le le'idach man da'amar. Like the other opinion holds, the Trei or Trei sveika da'iraisa. Right, there's a machlokes. Is Trei or Trei sveika da'iraisa, or is Trei or Trei sveika da'rabanan? Says Rabbi Eiger, let me explain. Venerally, the sharish haplukta hachihu. Here's the root of the machlokes. If you hold that sveika da'iraisa man da'amar sveika da'iraisa sfir that the same way we say 2 is like 100, right? Do we say 2 is like 100? Why don't we say, let's take 2 against 2, they'll cancel out, and you're left with 98 on the right side, right? The right side has 100, the left side has 2. Let the 2 and 2 cancel out, and let's let the right side win because it's 98 against 0. We don't say, Uki Trei la'adi Trei, v'nishru idach Eidim. We don't say, let the 2 Eidim and the 2 Eidim cancel out and you're left with the others. V'hainu al kachach, the Trei alam, koichayo neged kama kitois. It must be because 2's koyach is strong against many groups. Meaning 2 Eidim is like 100 Eidim. Hachanami neged Eidim v'chazaka. Likewise against Eidim and Chazaka. The same way 2 Eidim could destroy 100 Eidim, 2 Eidim should be able to destroy 2 Eidim and Chazaka. The Chazaka ha-mesayea l'idach kat, the Chazaka that assists the other group, lo yadifa, is no better mi'ilu oid kad Eidim mesayim lahem, than if another group of Eidim was helping it. In other words, what's better, Eidus or Chazaka? Eidus. And if 2 Eidim are supported by another 2 Eidim, it doesn't add anything. So certainly if 2 Eidim is supported by Chazaka, it shouldn't add anything. How could Chazaka be stronger than Eidus? That was, by the way, the svara of the first answer of Tosfos and Baba Basra, that a Migui cannot add to Eidus, because if Eidus doesn't add to Eidus, Migui doesn't add to Eidus. So by the same token, if Eidus doesn't add to Eidus, Chazaka doesn't add to Eidus. Ukesvara, says Rabbi Eiger, like the argument, like the svara of Zu kasvu mamish toisus bababasa batira tarishan linyun migu. Yeah? So, Rabbi Akiva Eiger is extrapolating. The same way Tosus says Migu doesn't add to Edom, Chazaka doesn't add to Edom. V'idach man da amar sfile, the other opinion holds. The Dafka, no. Trei, the other man da amar holds like the other terrace of Tosus. The Dafka, Trei kameya amrinan. 2 is like 100, because all the proof is in the realm of testimony. And in the realm of testimony, 2 edus is the highest amount of proof in the realm of testimony. But Chazaka is in a different realm. Chazaka is a different kind of proof. The same way in the second answer of Tosus, Migu could add to Edim. It's just 2 Edim can't have a Migu because the 2 people will never get their act together. But technically, in the second answer of Tosus, Migu could add to Edom. V'idach man dar masur dafka trei kamei amrinan dahakomi den edus. Masha'en ken le'inyan Chazaka, as opposed to regarding Chazaka amrinan kiven dahave edus mukchashes. Since the edus is contradicted, misalkan l'cholo edus, we could remove the edus v'neskaima ha'chazaka. Meaning, this is like the second answer of Tosus. That's why this Tosus over here did not like the first answer of Tosus, because the second answer of Tosus is saying, no, I understand Eidos can add to Eidos, but Chazaka should be able to add to Eidos, because let the Eidim cancel out, and you'll be left with a Migu. And that's why Tosus had to come up with a svara that in the psychology of Migu, the Migu doesn't work by 2 people. So Rabbi Akiva Eiger is basically saying the 2 answers of the Gemara are arguing, Trei Seked Daraisa or Trei Seked Rabbanon are arguing based on the 2 answers of Tosus. By the way, and then he says Tosus and Baba Kama is Masupuk by Trei and Amigu. Why would it work? Because just like we say by Chazaka Midaraisa, the Chazaka could work, so too Lagabe Migu. And then Tosus says, then Rabbi Akiva Eiger says something very interesting. Even if you want to say like the first teretz of Tosus, that Migu doesn't add to Edom, you could still have a position that Chazaka does add to Edom. Why is that? He says, Oidu yesh l'chalek, d'l'inyan migu hu derech haichacho birur. Even if you want to say, like the first teretz of Tosus, that Migu cannot add to Eidos, that's because the way that Migu works is evidence. Migu is proof. Migu is clarification of what happened. Well, V'havei rak kamay anan sadi. It's like, it's not witnesses testifying, but it's a concept, we are all witnesses that this is truthful because the person did not claim this. And therefore, the logic of Tosfos would stand that it's not better than Edim Mamish, and we would say Trei Kameya. But Chazaka is not Birur V'Haichacha. Chazaka is not proof. The way Chazaka works is it's not clarification and proof. This is what the Torah says. That by every suffix, let's leave it the way it is. In other words, whenever you don't know what to do, status quo, let's just leave things where they are. And don't change it. We're going to establish it based on its original Chazaka. Meaning, Rabbi Akiva Eiger is saying you don't have to say that the Gemara's position of allowing Chazaka to work by Trei is only going according to the second answer of Tosfos, that Migu could work by Trei, because Migu is different than Eidos, and therefore Chazaka could work by Trei. No, you could say even like the first teretz of Tosfos, that even if Migu doesn't add to 2 Edom, that's because the manner with which Migu works, again, Migu is a proof that what we're saying is valid, because if you think we're lying, we could have lied better. That's evidence, that's proof. So that cannot work and add to Eidos. But Chazaka is not proof. Chazaka is just, since we don't know what to do, let's just leave things exactly where they are. Gam b'trei Trei omrinan hachi, to have a suffix ma'aliyah, v'ukmei Chazaka rishana. And Rabbi Eiger says, I'm masupik by there's a chazaka of ein adam porea toich zmanoi, that a person never pays back a loan within there's a chazaka that if somebody borrows money, they will not pay back within the allotted amount of time. Would that chazaka talk in the face of Trei? So Rabbi Eiger says, maybe, even if you say, like the Gemara's maskana, Trei sveika d'Rabbanan, that's only by a regular chazaka of status quo. Status quo could say leave it where it is. But if it's the kind of chazaka where there's like a phenomenon, a person wouldn't do this, that's not a status quo chazaka, that's an evidence-based chazaka, that cannot talk in the face of Trei. Yeshamar b'debezeh, lo yazlinam basar chazaka, the ha-chazaka, the einadam parei toich zmanoi, have a begeder anan sadi, that kind of chazaka is like a migu, it's like an anan sadi, like idus, and then we say Trei kameya, and even though the Gemara concludes Trei sveika d'Rabbanan that chazaka could work, that doesn't necessarily mean that all chazakas would work. Now, what would you tzaddikim and Tamei Chachamim say regarding Trei, and you have a roiv? You have two edim against two edim, and you have a roiv supporting one way. So, give me 1 minute, because it seems like Tshuva Kuf Lamed Zayin did not make it on the sheets. I'm just getting it from the next room. In Tshuva Kuf Lamed Zayin, Rabbi Eiger says like this: Umashikasav Mailas Kavoid Tairasai, on the suffix of a sefer called Shoshanas Ho'amakim, Trei u'Trei b'makim Roiv. Rabbi Eiger says like this: Yesh loymar, de betreu Trei, kiven to have a suffix b'milsa talina hadavar b'roiv. By Trei, maybe we could follow a roiv. You wouldn't follow a migu is evidence. You might not follow a chazaka like ein adam porea toich zmanoi, because that's like an evidence-based chazaka. But the same way a chazaka of status quo you could use by Trei. If there's a roiv, you could use it by Trei. Why? The kach amra Torah. The bechol safek tezal basar roiv. The Torah says, when you are in doubt, you follow the roiv. It's not that the roiv is paskening, that we have evidence, that because the majority is so, then this proves that it came from there. It's just what we call a hanhaga. This is how we accord ourselves. This is how we act. This is how we behave. When you don't know what to do, you follow the roiv, not because a roiv is evidence, but a roiv is guidance of what to do when you don't know what to do. Then Rabbi Eiger says, in his opinion, roiv should be able to work b'makam Trei. Now, this is not unanimous that roiv could work b'makam Trei, because ashrecha shezachisa to see the Shev Shmeittsa vav Perek Chaf Beis. Now, it's worthwhile just to see the first two lines. Vahine bahad dekai malan Trei u'Trei sveika d'Rabbanan. Okay, if all we learned today was that, we should have been able to figure that out from the Gemara, but the Shmeittsa is just saying the maskana of Shas is Trei sveika d'Rabbanan, which means midaraisa there's no suffix. We will use Chazaka, right? Because Trei sveika d'Rabbanan means minat Torah ukmi achazaka kamaisa. Says the Shev Shmeittsa, Rabbi Akiva Eiger maybe is clear that Roiv could work b'makayim Trei. Says the Shmeittsa, v'nistapakti heicha doleka Chazaka. I am in doubt. If there's no Chazaka, el aruba, kivan deruba adav me Chazaka, Roiv is better, right? We know there's a principle. Ruba v'chazaka, ruba adif. Roiv and Chazaka, Roiv is stronger. So we should say, if Chazaka works b'makam Trei, Roiv should certainly work b'makam Trei, because Roiv is stronger than Chazaka. But on the other hand, maybe if it's stronger, that's its downfall, because if it's stronger, maybe it's a proof, and if it's a proof, it can't work by Eidos. He says, then also let the Roiv paskin, and should only be a Safek D'Rabbanan, Kamei b'Chazaka. Amnam nira, says the Shmeittsa, it would seem to me the heicha doleka Chazaka. If there's no Chazaka, el Roiv havele sveika d'oraisa. It's a Safek d'oraisa, mishum the Trei sadi adif meruba, because two witnesses are better than a Roiv. Ve'en ha-Roiv yachal achriya b'Trei Trei. V'davka Chazaka kama hu demahani min ha-Torah. Only a presumptive status can work with the Raisa mishum the kivan dilafanenu sveika de Trei. That since before us is a suffix of 2 and 2, azlinam basar Chazaka, we're going to follow the Chazaka. Ve'inach yachal mechaz kama, you can't remove it from its original status. Ade is barer, until you've clarified sheyatsa mechazkasa rishayna. Meaning the way Chazaka works by Trei is, since you're in a stalemate, since you're at a crossroads and you don't know what to do, so until you could prove definitively and extricate it from its presumptive status, you can't remove it. Avaruba, but the way Roiv works is Einoi ela raya shenoite lahater yosem el iser. Roiv is a proof that it's more inclined to be mutter than aser. But in this case, since we have 2 against 2, it's a 50-50 suffix, even by Roiv. Just like Roiv has no bearing against Edom at all, because 2 is 100. And we call it again Trei v'ruba d'layad of Mitrei. Meaning the Shmeittsa is not so definitive about what Rabbi Akiva Eiger was sure about. Rabbi Akiva Eiger seemed to say that the way Roiv works is Kach amra Torah. B'chol safek, anytime you have a doubt, tezel bas a Roiv. You should follow a Roiv. And the Shmeittsa is mesupik, because the way Roiv works, it's some proof, it's some kind of indication, and b'makayim, it doesn't add anything to 2 Eidim. Okay, next subject. Me'inyan le'inyan ba'isai ha'inyan. If you remember from your yeshiva days, a very fundamental and interesting chakira of the Kuntrus HaSveikos. Kuntrus HaSveikos, I believe, was the brother of the Ktsois HaChoshen. Let's see. The Kuntrus HaSveikos was Rabbi Yehuda Kahana, the Goyna of Bezin of Seagate, the Trumas Hakri, and the brother of the Ktsois HaChoshen. Ktsois HaChoshen was Rabbi Aryeh Leib HaKoyen, and this was written by his brother, Rabbi Yehuda HaKoyen. By the way, he writes something very interesting in his Hakdama. He says that if a person would be able to go up to the moon and not tell anybody about it, he wouldn't go in the first place. Because almost all the enjoyment that a person has in this world of doing anything is if he could afterwards tell people about it. But if we tell him, you could go anywhere, but you have to keep it to yourself. The person says, so what's the point? Okay, anyway, he says like this. Remember, the Gemara tried to prove from the Barshatya case. Remember Barshatya? He went in and out of bouts of sanity and insanity, and he sold land. And what did we paskin over there? Rav Ashi said, Uke ara b'cheskas Barshatya. Leave the land in the possession of Barshatya. Now, right now the land is not in Barshatya's possession. He sold it to someone. So it's physically in someone else's possession. But Barshatya was the original owner. What is that called, the original owner? Mari Kama. Mari Kama. How does Mari Kama work? The Chazaka says, V'roiles boinein cheskas Mari Kama b'mamayna minalan da'azlina basrei. The Chazaka of original owner by Mammon. How do we know we follow it? I understand something called cheskas Mammon, that when you don't know what to do with money, so you leave it in the possession of the one holding it. So the Gemara says in Baba Kama, that's a svara. It's a svara. Right? In other words, you have no... Until you... Right now I'm holding it. I have no problems. You want to be moitzi from me. I'm moitzi varaya. But cheskes Mari Kama, that nobody's holding it more than anyone else. Why should you follow cheskes Mari Kama? So he says... Two possibilities. He says, Cheskas Mari Kama b'mamayin is mikaya chazaka kamaisa di isuru da asya. It's like Cheskas Isur. The same way if a woman is married and you throw her a get, safei karav la is safei karav la. So if you don't know what to do, we follow Chazaka, and that is, she's been married until now, and she'll stay that way until you can prove otherwise. That's not Hamotz Mechaver Varaya. That's something called Cheskas Isser that we learn out from Sukkim. So the same way there's something called presumptive status quo by Isser. So why wouldn't we say that by money, even though no one's physically holding it? But we should say presumptive ownership until proven otherwise. Meaning maybe Cheskas Mari Kama is like Cheskas Isser. And then the Kunchis Asveka says, no, it could be the Cheskas Mari Kama by Mammon is not Chazaka Kamaisa. It's not like presumptive status by Isser, because you can't Mamanim Isser Lo Yalfinan. But rather, Cheskas Mari Kama is like Cheskas Mammon. Mamish. It's like law of possession. It's like it's in my possession. Just like by money, logic dictates, you can't take away my possession if I'm holding it. Likewise, even if I'm not holding it, but if I'm the original owner, if you know it was mine, even though right now it's in the Agam or in the Shesarabim, it's mine. Once I had ownership over something, even though it's not in my domain, there is a logic that says, it's in my possession. That's still law of possession. That's the question. It's the famous Chakira of the Kunshas HaSveika is, how does Mari Kama work? Is it like Cheskas Isser? The same way, if you don't know if a woman is married, if she was married until now, let's assume she remained that way. So it's the same thing by money. Or do we say you cannot learn out money from Isser, but Cheskas Mari Kama is like law, is like Hamotzimei Chaver Varaya. The same way if I'm holding something, you want it, you're going to have to prove that it's yours. So too, if I used to own it, that's called, it's in my pocket. Now, what would you say that our Gemara seems to say about this Chakira of the Kunshas HaSveikos? Remember, the Gemara is vacillating back and forth. Can you use Chazaka when you have two Eidim against two Eidim? And the Gemara says, well, wait a second, maybe regarding Gittin, you cannot use the Chazaka that she has, that she's married. And then the Gemara says, I'll prove to you that you could use Chazaka from the case of Barshatya. Now, what would you say about the following case? You have two Eidim say, Ruvain is the owner of the cow. and two Eidim that say Shimon is the owner, and Ruvain is holding it. Would you ever say in your right mind that Trei Sveika D'Oraisa and Ruvain should not continue to be the owner until we prove otherwise? Meaning, would anybody in their right mind say Cheskas Mamoin can't work by Trei? Because there's no question, if somebody's holding something, that is not a proof it's theirs, but there's a logic. It's in my pocket, and you cannot take it until you could prove otherwise. It's not birur, it's just hanhaga. We would have said, presumably would say, that everybody would agree that law of possession can work in a situation of Trei. So when the Gemara is trying to prove that Trei Sveika Durabanan, that Chazaka could work by Trei, and the Gemara brings a proof from Barshatya, and there the Chazaka that's being utilized is Cheskas Marikama, doesn't that prove that Cheskas Marikama is like Cheskas Isser, and not the law of possession? Because the Chazaka of possession has no bearing on Trei. Because everybody would agree that the Chazaka of physical possession, of course, has what to say even in the face of Trei. So Rabbi Chanan in the Kovetz Haaretz, Siman Chav Zayin, says that our Gemara speaks very loud and clear about the Kunchas Feikos Shaila. That the Kunchas Feikos wanted to know, what is Marikama? Is it like Cheskas Isser? That there's some kind of presumptive status that it should belong to the original owner, like Cheskas Isser? Or is it like law of possession? Well, if it's like law of possession, how could the Gemara prove from Marikama to Cheskas Isser? It must be Marikama is analogous to Cheskas Isser. Look at Rabbi Chanan. Bahad afligu Trei.
In the case of Barshatya, who's the one that's holding the property? It was the buyers are holding the property.
Correct. But Uki, we're giving it to the Marikama. Because I'll tell you why. No. Because by land, there's no such thing as possession by land. There's no such thing as muchzik by land. The fact that you're on, you can be muchzik on land. You're on it. I just pushed you off it. I mean, what does it mean you're on it? There's no such thing as muchzik by karka. You might be saying cheskas gimel shanim. So then there's no marikama. If there's cheskas, in other words, because the way cheskas gimel shanim works is it says it destroys the marikama. It says shtarim. It says shtari achvislei, right? Where's your star? It says, where's your star? So by land, there's no such thing as muchzak. There's only marikama, provided that the other guy doesn't have cheskas gimel shanim, right? So what Rabbi Chanan is saying, the Gemara has a shaila, Trei lishni b'trei Trei, I havis sveika d'oraisa d'rabanan, and the Gemara says, according to the man d'amar sveika d'oraisa, then Cheskas Marikama would not work by Barshatya, right? The Gemara's to have a proof from Barshatya means that if you hold Chazaka doesn't work by Trei, it shouldn't work by Barshatya. But wait a second, why wouldn't it work? L'chayar niramizad the Cheskas Marikama mitam Chazaka d'mei ikara like Cheskas Isser, and that's why it wouldn't help by Trei if you hold Sveika d'Oraisa. Because if you're going to say that Marikama's Cheskas Mamoin, why wouldn't it work by Trei? And this is the suffix of the Kunchas HaSfeikos. But l'chayar from our Gemara, it's a raya that it works mitam Chazaka me'ikara and not Muchzak. You're right, Asi, that by Barshatya someone else is the Muchzak, but Muchzak is not relevant by Karka. Okay, that's what I got for you today. It's a very, I guess it's a Shas Sugya of whether Chazaka works in the face. So the bottom line is, we paskin Trei Sveika D'Rabanan, which means that a presumptive... So basically, Rabbi said there are three kinds of Chazakos. Listen to, comes out based on what we learned today, there are three kinds of Chazakos. There's law of possession, that if someone's physically holding something, and that Rabbi Chanan seems to say everybody would agree would work by Trei or Trei, even if you hold Trei or Trei Sveika D'Oraisa, Muchsuk would work. And that's why Rabbi Chanan says, if the Gemara is bringing in Marikama must be not a Muchsuk. Then there's Chazaka, like Chazaka Me'ikara, for example, Cheskas Eishasish, Cheskas Pnuya, or what Rabbi Chanan calls Marikama. And does that work by Trei or Trei? That's the Machloikis, Trei or Trei, D'Oraisa or D'Rabbanan. If you hold D'Oraisa, it doesn't work. If you hold Trei or Trei, Sveika D'Rabbanan, it does work. Then you have a Chazaka, which is proof. For example, Chazaka Ein Adam Parei Toch Zmanoi, which Rabbi Eiger is masupik about, that even according to the Maskana, that Trei Sveika D'Rabbanan and Chazaka cannot work. That Chazaka could work, but maybe a Chazaka that is a proof can't work. Then there's Migui. Does Migui work by Trei or Trei? So Rabbi Chanan says, if Trei or Trei is Sveika D'Oraisa, for sure not. And even if Trei or Trei is Sveika D'Rabbanan, it could be, it still doesn't work. Because a Migui is a proof. A Migui is a proof. What about Roiv? Could Roiv work by Trei or Trei? Rabbi Eiger says yes. Roiv is like a lower level Chazaka. It doesn't paskin, it tells you how to accord yourself. And the Shev Shmeittsa says not so fast. Maybe Roiv can't work either. Okay, Rabbi Isai, have a great day. Bracha v'atzlacha. And we will all be in touch. Bez Hashem, this week we continue back on the Igaras Hagra at 5:30. Okay, Rabbi, say have a great day. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.